Cool. So now let's get back to just doing normal visual stuff. So this is good for optimization, and you're going to set the text to be whatever you want it to be. What you can also do, and one thing that I found was great just from a visual standpoint, is changing the text material or the color. I'm going to do, I'll do color this time, just because the color is the easiest one for you guys. And then I'll show you guys later how you can make the material glow, the text glow, and everything else, but that's a discussion for later. So I'm going to do set color. And the value, can I not see the detail for the value? No? Okay, whatever. I'll just make that a variable. And then I'll call the variable text color. And when I compile it, I can change the color to be green. Like that. And now in terms of visuals, when I press the key, it's now green. And you know that it works. A little bit of visual feedback for the player, just so they know they're doing good. Alright, so let's save this. Now let's take a look at my original script and see what I have. So I'm actually going to just isolate this part for you guys so you can see what's going on. So, just to show you, we already did this part. This was the first thing we tried out and made sure it worked. We have a do once node, which I'll get into why we have that in a little bit. And then we have this stuff here, which I'll show you why we have this in a bit as well. But the main thing is we had to set text where we did that. We set the text to be equal to the number. We also set the material to be different. And that's all we have so far. This extra Boolean array and everything else, that is for optimization and also to save you time. So to break this down, what this does is, when I input the first number, I have a key code, which this is actually set to an array, so I can just keep doing everything in the editor and not inside my code. I'll show you why I have that in a little bit. But basically, it gets the code array element 0. If that element was pressed, it's going to say, hey, cool. And now I have this thing called set array element. Now what this does is I have two things. I have a is input correct, and then I have a Boolean array index. This is input correct. It's for not my first input, but all the subsequent inputs. And so basically it says, hey, was the 0 input correct? If it's so, set to true, because we knew that it was correct, so we set that to true. And then it sets the text, does all the visual stuff. Then what it does after that is it sets the Boolean array element. So originally it was 0, it adds 1 to it. You can do an increment that works just the same, but I like doing the add 1 as more of a visual way to say, hey, so it's adding 1 to the Boolean array index. And then when it does that, it's just making sure that I can just check to see if the input was correct, and if it was, I print out the string. This part here actually gets taken out of all the later versions, but it's still just visual. You know it's working, then you can get rid of it. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to actually, since this code, the first part of the code is done, we're going to start working on the second code block. So we have one input. Let's make it so that we can input 2 numbers instead of 1. So first thing I'm going to do, and then I'm going to copy this. I'm going to right click, and I'll duplicate it, move it over a little bit, and this will be for my second input. Now, the way this is going to work is we already know that this works. So I'm going to go drag this over here, and we want it to do this a second time. So I can just copy and paste and bring it down here. Now, one thing you'll notice is I don't think this will work. If I do this, yep, the true will only work for one node. So if you wanted to do for more than one, what you do is you would do something called a sequence. And so first it does this one, and then it will do the second one. Like so. So great. So now I have the first part of the code, the second part of the code. Let's see what happens when I compile and try playing the game. If I press the number 2, it sets the first one to be 2. But if I press it again, it's not doing anything. Why is that? Well, it's simple. The first reason why it's not doing anything is the most simple reason, which is I'm only changing the first text to be the number 2. I'm not changing the second one to be 2. So I just need to connect these things together, and that's good. So let's see what that does. So now it set both of them to be 2. I only want one to be the number 2, and I want the other to be a different number. The reason why I set in both of them to be the number 2 is because this key code is still assigned to whatever number it was, which I have in here as the number 2. And there's no new number for the next key. And so this is where all of the extra stuff that I have for optimization, whereby I have these numbers come into play. So what we need to do is we need to first make it so that we can have more than one key input in here. The way we do that is we're going to set up what's called an array. So I'm going to do that by I'm going to click on this node, and I'm going to click this button right here and change it to an array. And I'm going to change the variable type, and it will spit out this little error thing, but that's fine because we're going to fix that. So now it says that this is red. I'm going to break that link, and I'm going to do the same thing for this here. Change that variable type. Cool. I'm going to break this. Cool. So now, with these being arrays, first things are broken. That's fine. Let me just unbreak them. So let's break the links. There we go. Cool. What else is still here? I don't care that much. So now, hopefully it'll let me. Yeah, it's not gonna let me. That's fine. When there's an error, it doesn't let me show the blueprint, which is so much fun. So let me just fix this error as well, just so I can show you guys what's going on. Cool. Also, just as a little bit of a sidebar, as you can tell, this is going to be a multi-part video. So if you don't see what you need in the first video, just go to the next one, so on and so forth. I'm going to try to make all these videos about roughly 15 minutes in length. So however many that takes, you'll just go to the final video if you need to just see the end result. But again, if you want the breakdown, you stay here. I break down every single part of this code. Alright, so back to the work. So right now we have this set to be an array, And since this is public, when I go back here and let me actually compile this. Why is it still broken? I'm going to break those as well. And you don't have to break these. This is just for me showing you what's going on. So when I go here, I can actually set the array elements. So I can set this to be, for instance, 1, and this to be 2. And then again, because I am using numbers, I will also set my alternate keys as well, like so. So I can set the different numbers inside my editor instead of having to go into code, which is perfect. That's what you want. But the issue we run into is the fact that we can't connect this to this. The reason for that is because you can't connect an array to a single variable input. So the array can have multiple different inputs. For example, I can go in here. I can click on all these inputs and have up to as many as I want. But this key code can't just parse through and know immediately which one you want just by connecting this node here. What you have to do is you have to actually create what's called, well, you have to actually get the certain array elements. To do that, all you have to do is you just drag off on key code and type in the word get, and then you connect that here. What this does is it's gonna get whatever the whatever element number is here, and it's spit that out into your code. So if array element is 0, which is the first array element, 0 is the one that spits out. If it's array element 1, like I have down here, it will instead go to whatever the second element is. And so first let's just do this so I can show you what's going on. Just gonna copy this, plug it in here. I'm gonna put it here as well. And cool. And then you gotta connect this stuff here. Make sure all the visual stuff is working properly, so we can tell everything's working. And connect all this stuff here. And just make sure this is all proper. Alright, so now when I compile, it check for array element 0, which is the first one, and then 1, which is the second one. So I press the number 1, I press the number 2, it goes like that. Cool. So that works out perfectly fine. Now, you can easily, very easily, just keep copying this stuff here, changing the array element in here to, like, say 2, and be fine that way. But because this is coding, we try and make it a little amount of work as possible for us. And so what I did for my code is, and you'll see it here, All this Boolean array index and stuff this is just managing the array index, so I don't have to actually come into the code and manually type in the numbers. So what I'll do is I will give this a quick pause, and then I'll go back in and continue in less than a second or the next video, whichever comes first. So I'll give you guys a pause, you can catch up, and we'll continue in a sec.